Hi, I'm Liv and welcome back to the Book Nook. Welcome back being the operative word, although it is me that is welcoming me back, because you've all still been here, presumably. Lordy May, it's warm. So I haven't done a video in, like, over 2 weeks now, and the last one I did, I hadn't done a video in about 2 weeks. April was not a booktubey month for me. I've been a bad booktuber. Sorry. It's weird, I don't really know what the point of this video is other than just to sort of say, hello, I'm still alive, I'm fine, things are fine. I've just not been in a particularly booky place this month, and I think for the first time in a long time that's not been a reading slump related non-booky place. It's been a life is happening kind of booky place. Now, knowing me, if I were to stop and think about that too much, I could get myself kind of worked up about what that means for me and books in my life, and if life gets in the way, do books fall apart? But not fall apart, fall away, you know what I mean. But no, life happens sometimes. Sometimes you read more books, sometimes you feel more booky, and sometimes you feel less booky. And I think that's okay. Yeah, so life has been happening, some good things, some bad things, some great things have been happening that have just meant I've not been quite so bookish, and it does mean that I've not watched anywhere near as much booktube as I want. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, I've watched like none. I am so behind on all my favourite booktubers, and yeah, I feel kind of bad about that, but at the same time, like, this is life, it happens sometimes. But yeah, I just wanted to check in and say hello. So I've had my hair cut, got that chopped off on my birthday, which was on Friday. I am now 26. I am now officially closer to 30 than to 20. So yeah, I had a really awesome chill birthday, just spending it with friends and people that mean a lot to me, and yeah, it was great. And the worst birthday present I got was this stinker of a cold. So yeah, I'm feeling a little bit sinusy and sorry for myself. Sinusy and sorry. Don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, hey, I'm back on my bullshit. Rest assured, when I say I've not been feeling so booky, it don't mean I haven't been buying books. I've still been buying plenty of books, and I will do a haul for the last half of April. I've definitely been buying more books than I have read, for sure. Oh, me biscotti have drifted. So I realised the last wrap-up I did was towards the end of March, but I still had some of March left to go, and I thought what I would do for this video, as well as saying hi and sort of checking in, is just do a quick wrap-up of what I've read since then, and you will see how much slower my reading has been in April than usual. So the first book I read, which I think I mentioned in one of my previous videos that I was going to read, is The Cows by Dawn Porter. This was like relatively popular when it came out in hardback, and it was one that I'd been sort of thinking about, and I was sent a proof. And essentially it is about a woman who is this sort of high-powered career woman, single parent, and she is filmed masturbating on a train when she thinks she's alone, and it's sort of the fallout from that. And essentially, I think the idea behind it, the ideas, the sort of commentary that's behind it was really, really good and my kind of thing. The execution, possibly not quite for me. It was a little lighter than... No, I don't mean lighter. I don't really know what I mean, but essentially it didn't quite land with me as much as I was hoping. And the end felt a little bit... Sorry? As I say, the ideas behind it, the point that it's making about what women are and aren't allowed to do, and what sort of the double standards, and about sort of sex and women and power and all those sorts of things are really interesting. There's one sort of thread of the storyline that just felt a little forced and a little bit bonkers, and like it was only there to tie the other two things together, which was kind of necessary, but it kind of, as I say, didn't quite land with me. But I do think it's worth a read if you have been looking at it and thinking about it, but it's not, you know, it's not totally kind of groundbreaking. I don't like being even slightly mean or what have you, but yeah, good ideas, good intent, didn't quite land with me. So another book I read, which I kind of had similar... Sorry if my eyes keep going red, it's because I've had a coughing fit in between bits. Yeah, that's fun. Another book I read, which I had similar feelings about, was the What Page Are You On podcast book group book for April, I think, or was it March? I'm not sure. But that was Sweet Bitter by Stephanie Danner, and this is one that I mentioned I got the US cover for because I really preferred it. So this is a book about a 22-year-old Tess who lands in New York and gets a job as a waitress. Well, sort of first of all, she's, well, what is it called? Backroom waiter, something like that. I've forgotten the terminology exactly already because memory is bad even before you add a cold into the equation. And it essentially follows her figuring out her job there and her place in New York as a young 20-something. Now, I was initially quite taken with this. I really like the writing style. I liked that in the first few chapters there were sort of interspersals of writing about taste. You've got bits in the first couple of chapters that are sweet, granular, powdered, brown, slow like honey or molasses, the mouth-coating sugars in milk. Once when we were wild, sugar intoxicated us, the first narcotic we craved and languished in. We've tamed it, refined it, but the juice from a peach still runs like a flash flood. Bits like that I really enjoyed in the first couple of chapters, and then they kind of just disappeared. And for me, that was just a little bit, oh, where have those bits gone? Okay. But as I say, I did like the writing style in here, but I just found the storyline a little bit frustrating because essentially it was a young girl in New York falls for this unattainable, brooding man-child. And yeah, I was just a little bit like, okay. But yeah, I did like the writing style, but wasn't totally told. The storyline for me just wasn't quite meaty enough. There was a lot there to unpack and a lot that was interesting about this world. In terms of the world of one of these big, you know, New York restaurants that's incredibly popular and all of this, it was quite interesting. But yeah, personally for me, for a storyline about a restaurant, there wasn't quite enough meat on the bones for me. Next up, I read a very small book that came into work and confused a few people, and I think that is going to happen, and that's why I'm slightly surprised about the cover. And that is Cat Person by Kristen Rupinian. Oh dear. This is the short story that went viral on The New Yorker towards the tail end of last year, and everyone went bonkers for it, and I read it, and I decided to give it another go when this came in, put it that way, and I'm still not 100% sold on it myself. I think I need to have more conversations with people who loved it to really kind of get a grip on what I'm missing. But for me, again, it was one where the writing was good and there were sort of flashes of brilliance in there, but overall I just found it a little bit okay. But I will say, any short story that gets people kind of fired up about the power of short fiction and ends up with her debut short story collection being, you know, snapped up for 2019 for, you know, comparatively silly sums of money in the world of things like this, and gets that much of a buzz about it, I think is quite exciting. I'm just personally not sold that this is the one that should do that. Now, I do appreciate that part of the reason I think this story went so viral and was so sort of appreciated was because of its subject matter, talking about sort of male entitlement and how women navigate relationships, but I just think it, for me, again, it didn't quite land properly. And I should have said, with all of the books in this video sort of that I haven't necessarily loved, that maybe it may be a case of right book, wrong time type thing with how I've been with reading recently, but the fact that this one didn't quite land with me and I didn't love it when it went viral, and then I gave it another chance and it still didn't really, it makes me think it's not, well, it is me, but it's not me now, it's just my taste. But as I say, I think I maybe need to have some more conversations with people who did love this and see what I may be missing. Then after that, I read 2 graphic novels which I hadn't realised I had missed. You guys know that I love Lumberjanes, and I didn't realise that I had somehow missed volumes 7 and 8. So they came into the bookshop and I bought them and immediately brought them home and read them. I needed something that was warm and fuzzy and easy to kind of curl up with, and these did the trick. Not like warm and fuzzy like I needed something because I was sad, it was just like I didn't have the concentration levels for anything kind of meatier than that. I mean, I say that like Lumberjanes doesn't have meat on its bones. What is with me and the meat on its bones today? That's not necessarily fair to Lumberjanes, because Lumberjanes has so much packed in there. There's so much about female friendship, about LGBTQ+, and it's, oh, they're just fantastic. I think one day I probably will do, I keep meaning to do that proper video on graphic novels. That's another one that's not materialised, isn't it? But yeah, one day I will talk properly about Lumberjanes, but suffice to say, that was what I needed. Then I read a book that I picked up when I needed something to read on the train home, and I have since realised that, of course, I do already have a copy of it, but I have the Notting Hill editions cover version, and this is the version that then ties in with the second one, and that is Deborah Levy's Things I Don't Want to Know, which is the rejacketed version that goes with Deborah Levy's The Cost of Living. So this is the first volume of a sort of autobiographical trilogy that Deborah Levy's been writing, and I am so glad I read this one. I immediately wanted to come home and start reading The Cost of Living. I didn't, and I'm going to soon. And this had a hell of a lot more of an impact on me than I was expecting. I gobbled it up within about an hour, and I've only ever read Deborah Levy's Hot Milk before. As a sort of full volume. I've read little bits before, and I think I have read some of her short stories from Black Vodka, or Do I Mean the Unloved? I can't remember which one. I know I've got Black Vodka. Anyway, so I've never read as much of Deborah Levy's writing as I've always meant to, but she's one of those writers that I'm pretty sure I am just going to love most of what she writes. And for me, I always, in my head, and this sounds really weird, but possibly you can understand why, get her and Rachel Cusk confused, but I know that I really did not get on well with Rachel Cusk's transit or outline, whichever one or both of them. And so when I picked this up, I was like, okay, I'm going to give it another go. And I was thinking Rachel Cusk in my head, but absolutely gobbled this up, loved it. So as I say, the first in a trilogy of autobiographical volumes, the second of which is The Cost of Living, which has just come out. And it deals with a trip Deborah Levy took to Mallorca after a breakdown of a relationship, and sort of going back in her head as to the sort of genesis of some of her other writing, and a bit about her childhood, and it's just absolutely fascinating, for one. But the writing, again, Deborah Levy's writing is sharp and concise, yet somehow kind of digs underneath something and just lifts your thoughts up a little bit, just pries the edges up, and you end up kind of burrowing underneath them and exploring. And yeah, absolutely gobbled this up. I'm definitely going to get onto The Cost of Living soon. Thoroughly recommend this one. Another book that I've read this month that I finished actually this evening is Yoko Tashima's Territory of Light. Now this one I really wanted to love, and this one may well be a case of right book, wrong time, but I didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I absolutely adored the writing. Again, some beautiful turns of phrase in there. I love this sort of slightly detached style, but there were a couple of things about this book that meant I couldn't properly connect with it. The first is that this was originally published in 12 instalments in a newspaper or a magazine, I think, in Japan back in the 70s. So you get a little bit of kind of repetition at the beginning of some sections, and there are some sort of jumps that I think would have made a lot more sense if you are reading it monthly, or I'm not sure if it was actually published monthly or whether it was just published in 12 parts and each part is meant to represent a month. But yeah, it would have made more sense if you're reading it in installments, but reading it in, okay, 2 goes, but reading it sort of in one novel, just kind of, there's a couple of points where you go, oh, hang on, oh wait, yeah, okay, no, I'm with you. And the other thing that I couldn't quite connect with, and this is probably an intentional part of the story, essentially, it is about a woman in the 70s in Japan who wants to divorce her husband and take care of her daughter on her own, and sort of struggling with the reality of that. But the sort of relationship between the mother and her daughter, and between the mother and her husband and her friends, the detachment that I admire in the prose kind of meant that I had no kind of real emotional connection to anyone. Which was a shame, because I think it was there, and again, this may be on me and my reading at the moment, but I couldn't quite get over that little gap. Tricky to read because of how it was originally published, perhaps. Maybe suffers a little bit for that. But yeah, beautiful writing. Give it a go if you fancy. You can tell I'm a little bit out of practice, can't you? Because I'm not being as decisive. But my head is fuzzy, to be fair. And the other book, the final book that I have been reading over the course of this month that I haven't quite finished yet, but am thoroughly enjoying, is Leonora Carrington's The Debutante and Other Stories. These are just bonkers, and I bloody love them. Obviously, Leonora Carrington, surrealist artist, so if you come to this expecting some nice, straightforward short stories, you are going to be sorely disappointed if that's what you're hoping for, but these are just brilliant. They're just so off the wall, yet bristling with energy, and they're just like, they're like popping candy that you just put in your mouth and you're going, oh, what's happening now? Oh, okay, going with it. It's like folktales on LSD or something, and they're just absolutely fantastic, and I love them. So yeah, reading that one, go and get a copy of this if you want something bonkers and brilliant, and yeah. So yeah, that has been my reading month of April. Like, I know some people will say, you know, that's still more than they read in a month, but I think you guys know by now, for me, that is a short reading month. Not short reading month. Slow reading month. Less reading month. Not a lot of books. But yeah, I'm not going to turn this into a therapy session or what have you, but I think I've missed reading as much, and I've missed doing Booktube, and I've missed watching Booktube, but it's definitely been a month where life has been happening, and that's okay, and that's good sometimes, that your priorities just shift a little bit, and you focus on, yeah, I don't know, I don't really know what I'm saying now, but basically, I'm back. I'm going to try and actually do videos. That would be a start, wouldn't it? I'm going to catch up on loads of videos that I've missed, and yeah, just generally get back on my bullshit. So yeah, I hope you haven't missed me too much. I'm sure you haven't. So you'll either be glad that I'm back, or confused, or sad, but either way, I'm back. So yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time, sooner than in 2 weeks. Hold me to that.